Our last theme is policy. Policy and advocacy is a very important part of us moving the narrative around. It's important we talk about it. It's important we come together and do these kind of things. So I'd like to first introduce you to a short video about people talking about policy and advocacy.
Hi guys, my name is Luciana VIEGAS. I am autistic and a mother of an autistic boy. I am activist for the Black Disability Lives Matter. I live in Brazil and was invited by the UNAID to talk about my barriers. Well, I believe that the way I exist is to understand the neurodiversity is part of who I am. And to make people understand same social media and networked here. In my case, there is a little representation of Black and autistic women in Brazil. For this reason, I created the Instagram page Uma Mãe Preta Autista Falando, where I share my experience as a Black woman with a disability. Being a Black woman and autistic, I believe that intersectional discrimination is a big barrier. Yes, the people have the hard time reading me behind the racist, ableist stereotypes. This has been my main difficult and the threshold in the process. To make society understand the importance of the more careful look at the Black population with disabilities, to inform, to debate in Broadway, to think about the public policies for the Black and autistic people like me. We are dignified and they deserve support and access to rights.
Hi, I'm Sara ROCHA and I'm a disability advocate. As an autistic person, I'm highly empathetic and have a great memory for statistics and data and see patterns very easily in it. This means I'm good at reading research and developing creative projects in the community to support disabled people. The barriers that I find are disinformation and lack of inclusion and equity for neurodivergent people, access to education and employment and other services we desperately need, like mental health support. We need funding to grassroots to implement community services, and there's a lack of places at the table and political participation of self-advocates for us to be able to choose for us. Fund us, invite us to develop the projects that we need as neurodivergent people and wish we had growing up. Give us a platform for our voices and political participation. Nothing about us without us.
I am Tarun MATHEW, a 17-year-old autistic teenager from Kochi, India. I am non-speaking, and type to communicate. Most importantly, they control the future survival of the human species through their contribution to the great gene pool of neurodiversity. Things reach better ends if varying participant perspectives are included in all cases. The faster we reduce diversity, the sooner our hour of final tryst with our future survival as a species is reached. I contribute as a student and a thinker. People's attitudes and society's mindsets often hold great power over how neurodivergents are looked at, always. One laborious process, of course, is writing school board exams, as provisions aren't supportive to us non-speaking autistics. Have more autistics self-advocate and also back the need to listen to actually autistic people. The change needs to begin in the school system for non-speaking autistics to pursue education and contribute to society. Not speaking doesn't mean not thinking. Not expressing doesn't mean not feeling. Not talking doesn't mean not having anything to say.
As a content creator at Spectrum Fusion Studios, my mission is to help advocate for people on the autism spectrum. I strive to create stories and provide voiceovers that will increase understanding of autistic adults and their abilities. By doing this work, I hope that more businesses and organizations will recognize the value of employing people with autism and give them equal opportunities. Autistic adults can often possess unique and amazing creative skills, yet they may be passed over in favor of neurotypical adults who seem to have an easier time interacting with their peers. One approach would be to focus on teaching neurotypical people how to interact with autistic adults. However, even if successful, results may vary from person to person. Another feasible solution could be to teach autism spectrum adults how to communicate and form appropriate relationships with neurotypical people. In order for this strategy to work, patience and appreciation for the great diversity within the autism community is essential. With increased exposure to those on the autism spectrum, it's my hope that society will be better informed about their capabilities and talented contributions.
Hello, my name is Karen Maruki and I'm a Black autistic woman from Kenya. I work as a neurodiversity consultant at Ubongo TV. I am inclusion influencer at Enabled Africa, and I'm the disability inclusion facilitator for Sense International Kenya. What is the challenges that I have, especially in the area of policy, include discrimination, disability, not being well understood or supported in my life of my advocacy. What needs to be done? One of the major things that needs to be done in ensuring that there's a lot of policy work is for people to listen to our voices. We as autistic people need to be at the center when it comes to advocacy that affects us, in line with the Human Rights Convention and also under the CRPD. Secondly, it is time that we also lend our voices to ensure that there's advocacy at all levels, especially in the area of autism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, great video, great things being said, and everybody can get the messages. And luckily, this is all getting recorded, so you can all see it again and again through the UN's website later on. We are now moving on to keynote, Dr. Natalie Engelbrecht, talking about policy within neurodiversity. Over to Dr. Natalie.
When I was 6 years old, my best friend asked me, "What's your favorite color?" And I said, "What's yours?" And she said, "Red." And I said, "Mine too." And then she asked, "What's your favorite animal?" And I said, "What's yours?" And she said, "A dog." And I said, "Me too." In truth, I was terrified of dogs. Cats were my favorite animal, and my favorite color was actually purple. My friend became very irritated and said, "Can't you just think for yourself?" You see, early on, I had compiled a list of rules for making friends, because I don't have an intuitive sense of how to relate to people. So I followed a set of social rules that I learned through trial and error instead. But it wasn't just friends I was having trouble with. I also had problems at school. My parents were called in many times over the years because I was following the rules far more than the other kids. I followed the rules because those were the rules. And I felt proud that my parents were called in because I was being so good. But later on I realized teachers don't call your parents because everything's going so well. They call when they identify an issue. And the issue they identified was that I was following the rules too much. And the issue I identified was I had to figure out which rules to follow and which ones not to. In addition, the teachers were concerned about some of my other behaviors. For example, as I was saying, I loved the color purple. When I say I love the color purple, I mean it was the only color I wanted to use. I colored everything purple. The grass, the house, the people, the sun, everything. And the teacher called my parents worried about why I was refusing to color the sun yellow, which would have been age appropriate. Intellectually, I knew the sun was yellow, but I was so consumed with the color purple that I just couldn't bring myself to color it yellow. So what do these three stories have in common? Well, they're all examples of diagnostic criteria of autism. Hello, and thank you to the committee for this opportunity to address policy change on diagnosing autism in adults. I'm Dr. Natalie Engelbrecht, and I'm a late diagnosed autistic. I'm also a registered psychotherapist and a naturopathic doctor from Canada. And I have a practice focusing on adult autism assessment. And with other autistics, I co-created a free digital resource, a website called Embrace Autism, that is used by medical professionals and people worldwide for information and advocacy on adult autism. The springboard for me doing this was in an attempt to better understand myself. I found that there was little information on adult autism. There were a few blogs, but no science-based resources. And I love science. Just ask my kids. I recall their little eyes rolling and them saying, "Yes, Mom, it's evidence-based," as their dinner discussions would have to be backed up with peer-reviewed evidence. It's turned out all right. One's a doctor and the other one's studying to be a professor of philosophy. So, why was I 46 years old before I got an autism diagnosis? There are many reasons we don't get identified. The manuals for diagnosis, specifically the DSM-5 and ICD-11, use disease-based language focused on the perceived negative traits of autistics at the exclusion of the strengths. And that's just not how I saw myself, and that's clearly not how others saw me. I'm a professional with 3 degrees who's married, and I have 2 great kids I'm close to. And I'm a hard worker. And while non-autistics are driven to create social connections, I'm driven to pursue my passions. But the diagnostic manuals label my passions as highly restricted, obsessive, fixated, abnormal. My preference for work over socializing is seen as a deficit in social communication and interaction and as asocial. A scientific approach to autism should not be so biased towards the negative. Additionally, it should not have judgmental descriptions of neutral characteristics. For example, strong and consistent preferences may be perceived as negative by others, but they're not experienced negatively by autistics themselves. This stigmatizing language affects how medical professionals view and assess autistics and negatively affects how we see ourselves. Additionally, it can lead to autistic people not identifying as autistic because they don't resonate with the negative descriptions. There are also many healthcare professionals that truly want to help autistics who have spoken to me about their anxiety and their lack of confidence when getting referrals for adult autism diagnosis because they state that they have little to no training in assessing adults. And here's some true irony. We are drawn to healthcare professions. We're often your doctors and surgeons and psychiatrists and therapists, but many of us hide it. Research shows that we make better social psychologists than non-autistics because of our ability to systemize human behavior. We've been doing it since we were born. Can you imagine what it's like to feel the need to hide your autism when in fact those are the very traits that actually allow you to excel in your profession that's so helpful to others? And this hiding is called camouflaging. It's that we hide our autistic proclivities, and this causes misdiagnosis. Late diagnosis of autism takes a major toll on our mental health. While 9% of the general population struggle with mental illness, 70% of adult autistics are struggling with a co-occurring major mental illness such as depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and substance misuse. Research shows that we're much less likely to develop a mental illness if we're identified earlier in life. But outdated concepts of autism are creating barriers to us getting diagnosed. There are a very limited number of clinicians that have training in adult autism assessment. Research shows it takes on average over 3 years to get a diagnosis due to multiple misdiagnoses. And then cost can be prohibitive, especially if you're having to go for repeated assessments. And it can be geographically impractical and overwhelming. Autistics have stated that they would never be able to manage traveling to a different city, booking a hotel, and all the other things involved in going to an assessment outside of their city. And research is showing that it's unnecessary because online diagnosis is at least as accurate and far more comfortable for us. The health professionals I saw over the years never considered my autism for reasons such as my being female, having friends, making eye contact, I have good hygiene, I didn't have an intellectual or language disability, and I hid anything I felt was different about myself. And I also have a lot of empathy, to the point that I absorb other people's emotions. This is a new term in the autism research field, and it's called empathic attunement. A better understanding of myself has allowed me to accept myself. It has helped my loved ones understand me better and increased my overall well-being. Something I found out recently that's pretty cool is that there's a new term called embracing that's now making its way out into the community. It means accepting the core features of autism without diminishing or compromising our authentic selves. In conclusion, accurate diagnosis is the leading factor in improving quality of life for autistics, as it provides a framework to understand ourselves, and it would be even better if that framework included our strengths. It is time for policy on autism diagnosis to be reassessed to reflect the actual needs of autistics, because autism is not just a word, it's not just a concept, it's who we are. Thank you.
Dr. Natalie, that was lovely hearing from you. Thank you so much for partaking in this and sharing all your wisdom with us. We're now moving over to the policy panel, which is moderated by our very own Alex Pearson. Over to you, Alex.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. So this discussion will feature a variety of topics, which will cover the following Sustainable Development Goals. It's SDG number 3 will be covering good health and well-being. Number 4, quality education. Number 5, gender equality. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Number 10, reduced inequalities. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And number 12, partnership for the goals. Again, this is the world's first all autistic event for autism. We are absolutely thrilled to be here, and it's very groundbreaking. So thank you for sharing these moments with us. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask each of our wonderful panelists right here to introduce themselves and their contribution to the world in terms of policy and advocacy. So Ben, if we can please start with you, please share with us about your contributions to the world.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. My name is Ben Van Hook. I'm an autistic master's student studying public policy with an emphasis in education policy at George Mason University in Arlington, Virginia. I never thought I would be here speaking at the United Nations today. My story actually began with an abandonment as an infant in a train station in Harbin, China. And I never knew my biological parents, which was a demon I had to live with for the past 23 years. But fortunately, I was adopted and brought to the United States. However, my childhood was a bit rough as I faced a lot of racism, a lot of bullying, a lot of discrimination for my ethnicity. Alongside ableism, in high school, I was told that I would never achieve anything and that I was stupid and always wrong about everything. But although these events were traumatic and exhausting, these experiences served as really good motivators for me. Since those early years, I'd gained extensive experience in the neurodivergent advocacy space, particularly on LinkedIn, where I share my experiences, my perspectives, and my insights on a wide variety of topics, from the implementation of universal design to the implementation of different advisory boards in the employment settings to different parenting practices. Although I'm only 23 years old, I've had the honor of speaking at many neuro-oriented events, including Stanford University's Neurodiversity project and in Australia at Urbina. So I've had extensive experience in public speaking, and it's just such a great honor to have the opportunity to speak at this event for the United Nations, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ben, so much. That was so lovely. Thank you for sharing. I'll go ahead and share that same question with you, Jenny. Please introduce yourself and your contribution to the world with advocacy.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. My full name is Jenny My Fan, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a late diagnosed autistic woman. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C., and a longtime neurodiversity advocate. My ethnicity is Vietnamese, born to Vietnamese parents who immigrated to the United States in the late 1970s. I'm a mother, a wife and mother of 4 neurodiverse children. I serve on the United States Department of Health and Human Services Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee. I also serve as Executive Secretary on the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Psychology Interests Network. My advocacy work was born out of observing gaps in governmental and societal assistance for families. My past and current advocacy and policy work are in the United States, and I'm working with a team of neurodiverse Asian women to broaden culturally responsive care and supports more globally. Cultural responsiveness and inclusive linguistic and communication practices are central to my advocacy and policy work. I also bring attention to the intersectionality between autism and gender and cultural diversity in this work. And I apologize for talking like this. I'm still coughing from being sick.
You're doing fabulous, Jenny. Thank you so, so much. Oh my goodness, so much to share. You guys are so amazing. Tyla, I want to throw that same question to you. So excited to have you here, and please share with us a little bit about you and your contribution to advocacy.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tyler Grant. My pronouns are she, they. I am a late diagnosed autistic person, kind of. I fall into that grey area of kind of a child, kind of an adult. I was 17 at the time, I'm 25 now. So I came to start exploring what it means to be autistic and actually dyslexic as well, because I've got that going on in my head, when I was around 22, building communities online and finding people who look like me, experienced my struggles, and also had the same vision for their life as I do. So I find that a lot of the times when it comes to like accessing support or reaching out to help or speaking with people, they limit you as to what you can either achieve or want to dream for as an autistic person. And I've gone through this journey of being like, oh, I want to do all of the things, everything should be like a possibility for me, and almost at one point trying to do everything at the pace of someone who isn't autistic, and then realizing that that actually wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to have. So I'm now in a space of, and this is what my advocacy work centers around, especially for Black autistic women and non-binary people, I focus my work around actually reaching equality, meaning that we can be mediocre and still valued. So I'm working on a platform called All Right, where we add race into the all-white neurodiversity space, and we are working to strive for that equality, where it's just all right to be autistic and you can do what you want to do and design a life that works for you in alignment with your purpose, needs, values, and abilities.
Thank you, Tyla. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Pranav, if you could please share with us all your contributions to policy and a little bit about you. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about myself. I'm Pranav Kumar Rajgopal. I'm from Bangalore. I have done my education till my education. I hold a master's degree in commerce, and I'm currently working at Cisco as vendor analyst. So I was being diagnosed at the age of 4 as a mild autistic child, where I was lagging many things. It's like I faced a lot of challenges like eye-to-eye contact, and bullying was another constraint. Bullying, other people used to bullying me and exploit me, and they take me as an undue advantage. It was a rampant thing. And why I took this autism thing is like I'm doing the sensitization for the society and for our nation. I'm representing my country in this autism thing, because autism should be inclusive in education as well as in the workplace, whereas there is no need to show any sympathy. We know we want only empathy. We want an opportunity in the society to be given, and everybody should be treated equally. And I'm telling you, is like, I want, because my passion is towards sensitization of autism towards the school, towards education and workplace. Currently, I'm working at Cisco, so that is why I'm into autism, this thing, and everybody is something special. So autism is to be renamed as Goldism.
Thank you for sharing that. That was so lovely. Elizabeth, so excited to hear your answer here. Will you share with the world, please, a little bit about you and about your policy and advocacy?
I'm Elizabeth Bonker, Executive Director of Communication for All, a nonprofit with a mission to gain communication for the estimated 31 million people in the world who are affected by autism and cannot speak. I am one of the lucky few non-speakers who was taught to type at an early age, allowing me to conclude it in a mainstream classroom. For more than a decade, I have worked to change the way the world sees non-speaking autism so all can learn to type and be educated. My advocacy work includes a book and an album, both titled, I Am In Here, and meeting with lawmakers at the US Capitol. In May 2022, my valedictorian commencement address from Rollins College went viral with more than 4 billion media impressions. Global organizations, such as the Institute of Neurodiversity, Google, and Rotary International, offered to help our mission. I also advocate as a member of the Autism Society's Council of Advisors and Justice Center Task Force.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing that. For each of you, will you please share the top 3 policy and advocacy issues you want to drive in? Question 2, what are your top 3 issues that you would like to drive for us today?
Yes, thank you, Alex. So my first issue is education policy. I want to help transition autistic students from high school to higher education. And I also want to teach parents how to best support their child's transition into college. My second issue would be language. I think that we have to shift society away from accepting autistic individuals towards a society that truly appreciates neurodivergent individuals. I think that appreciation and acceptance are very different. And if we begin to realize this and take steps towards appreciation, we can become a lot more inclusive as a global community and a global society. And the last issue I want to bring up is a neurodiverse coalition and how we can best achieve this. For me, I think it's important to include everyone, both neurotypicals and neurodivergents, in the discussion as to how best to create an inclusive society. I feel we have to work together with our respective neurotypes and with other neurotypes in order to create a more inclusive and global society.
Thank you, Ben. That was so wonderful. I'm so excited to hear you expand on that. To share that same question with you.
I think all 3 that I'm about to share are really important. But the first that I think that's very near and dear to my heart is youth empowerment. I've heard at least 2 people say already that they were bullied in school when they were younger. I too was bullied when I was in school as well. And so youth empowerment is incredibly important for autistic youth and teaching self-advocacy skills. And along with that is to invest in educational staff who work with autistic students and students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The second issue is about advancing accessibility of validated and reputable information on autism to the public, and using language translations, alternative communication options, and sign language. And the third issue that I'm pretty passionate about is humane inpatient and outpatient treatment of medical care for autistic people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jenny. So Tyler, to share that question with you.
Sure.
Thank you.
So my first one would be the awareness of what autism actually is, not what it's currently represented to be. I think that specifically in the Black community, it is deemed to be one thing that it's not, and it's not supported by the mainstream media to be accurately represented. Supporting the exploration of alternative lifestyles would be my second. So that would be defining markers of success related to like where the individual is and what they want. Part of that would be like redefining what it means to be independent. And then the third is inclusive support services. So again, on intersectionality and looking at support services that are culturally relevant, as well as accessible by all means and all people.
Beautifully put, Tyler. Thank you so much. Now to Pranav to share that same question with you, please share.
The three top issues that we want an immediate change in the society are: one is specially abled children should be given equal opportunity in education and in sports. Talents in autistic children should be identified and honed. They should be encouraged and motivated to do better with their individual field of interest. Sensitization is a must in workplaces too. Organizations must take the required measures for building awareness and sense of inclusion when they hire a person with special needs. So these are the top three issues which has to be included in the society, and it should be given an equal importance.
Thank you so much. So Elizabeth, we're excited to hear.
Communication equality drives communication for all's advocacy and policy work. First, we advocate for non-speakers to have communication devices and the support they need to access them in schools. Most non-speakers with autism require trained communication partners to type on letterboards and keyboards because they have neuromotor issues. Second, families around the world need to have training for non-speakers to learn how to type available to them. Communication for All is creating internet-based instructional videos that demonstrate and explain each step, free of charge. Third, educational and medical professionals need to define non-speaking autism as a neuromotor disorder and not a cognitive one. With this support, families will see their non-speaking members as capable of communicating and contributing to the world. With these initiatives, non-speakers will be included in the UN SDGs for good health, quality education, decent work, and reduced inequalities.
Beautiful, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was gorgeous. Ben, I'm going to throw your question number one to you. It is, what is the difference between acceptance and appreciation as it relates to inclusion? Can you tell us, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So as we approach 2024, a question we must ask ourselves is, are we doing enough for neurodivergent individuals? And to answer this, I want to provide two timelines. The first is from 1970 to 2010, and the second is from 2010 to the present day. So if we look at 1970 to 2010, we can say that we have accomplished a lot, from passing the ADA to IDEA. We have more neurodivergents graduating high school and entering college than ever before. And we also have more neurodivergents who are employed than ever before. We have more staff at different universities who are educated in neurodiversity than ever before. And there are more neurodivergent specific programs at universities than ever before. However, if we look at 2010 to 2023, given the research, the resources, the tools, the knowledge, and the information available in this moment in time at our disposal, I would say we're not doing enough for neurodivergence. And this is where acceptance versus appreciation comes in. This is more than just a semantic difference, just like the difference between awareness and acceptance is. In this day and age, mere acceptance is the bare minimum that we can be doing, and appreciation should be the goal. What's the difference? So to me, acceptance is hiring because you have to, whereas appreciation is hiring because you want to. Acceptance is being okay that bridges exist, whereas appreciation is actively taking steps to build upon those bridges and connect with the neurodivergent community. Acceptance is helping neurodivergents survive, whereas appreciation is helping neurodivergents thrive. So how do we make this change? One of the biggest ways in which we can better support neurodivergent individuals is to listen to us. We are all different, and just because your husband's niece's fourth cousin's once removed ex-girlfriend was autistic doesn't mean that you know who I am. Instead of assuming who we are, it'd be great if people could attend webinars, different speaking engagements, listen to podcasts, blogs, articles written by neurodivergent individuals. And it's also important that we switch and shift to a universal design methodology and practice in employment and education to provide all the accommodations from the outset to neurodivergent employees and students.
So well said, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, Jenny, question one for you. What would you like to achieve in the next 5 years with your policy and advocacy work?
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to kind of, I guess, give nod to that quotes to thrive instead of survive. I've actually used that exact same line when advocating for inclusion and equity in academia. So, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So in the next 5 years with my advocacy and policy work, I'd like to be a part of a grassroots movement effort to achieve implementation of accessibility to federally or nationally funded research to the public. As a public, we need to see this information, have access to them so that we can advocate for ourselves. That is empirically driven or data driven, because it's information that will get to policymakers, and that we are explaining that this is not just a feelings, this is actually backed up by research. So one advocacy work that I would like to highlight is from FORT, F-O-R-R-T, which stands for Framework for Open and Reproducible Research Training. I am a member of FORT's Team Neurodiversity. Education, training, accessibility, equity, and inclusion are core to this team's work. We are a team of neurodiverse early career researchers and scholars. Within 1 year, our team produced 1 peer-reviewed paper, 1 preprint, 2 opinion pieces, 5 conference talks, 2 workshop seminars, and 1 grant. Imagine what we can do in the next 5 years. Working with this team showed me that when collaborating in an inclusive and equitable environment, we thrive rather than having to survive.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That's fantastic. So Tyla, question one for you. How influential is the press and how do we influence the right headlines?
So my background's actually in creative strategy. So I work a lot with brands who are trying to get into the press or get headlines and appear in the media and stuff like that. So I think I want to first address the power of the press. Like, it's there, it's massive, it's pervasive, and especially looking in culture, like this whole like Meghan and Harry situation is their campaign against the press and the media and how much of an impact that's had on their lives. Speaking from a minority group being autistic and Black, it's like the press has a massive impact on our lives as well. All it takes is a headline to swing the sentiment of a nation. So when it comes to conversations around neurodiversity, I think it's really, interesting and shameful that now that minority groups such as women, Black people, non-binary people, or just anyone who other than the people that the cis white males, the stereotypes and the diagnostic criteria were based on, are getting access to language, diagnosis, and then support. It's suddenly now that those people are getting access that there's a crisis of like overdiagnosis and misunderstanding of the information, and that when we're in this position and people are finally like beginning to realize like the lives that they lead and the reasons that they felt different all this time and why things have been unnecessarily stressful, where they're being demonized at the same time. And it's like they're suddenly on one hand learning so much about themselves and on the other hand scared to share this part about themselves because they can see and hear and feel how people kind of take them for a joke because it would like we're being memed and all of these things. So in terms of influencing that's the impact of it on the negative side. But then on the positive side, of course, like when we do have these opinion pieces and we do have people sharing their stories and given platforms in the press and media as a result of it, unfortunately, is also trending, but that's why it's getting the space that it's getting. So it's kind of, we've got to use that to our advantage and share our stories and take up space and speak on these platforms. I've lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? I was going towards how do we influence them? Completely different point, but influencing the press and the headlines. We kind of, I kind of don't don't believe we have
Tyler,
how to. I think also a lot of it is that like all it takes is like one line in an article for someone to see themselves in a piece of work and then further explore what it means. But then I think the second part of the question was around how do we influence the press, and I honestly don't believe that we can. The only way that we can is by giving views and attention and spotlighting and sharing, and everything's run by data these days. So the only way that we can influence continued commissioning and attention being given by these like publications and platforms to stories that are positive is by only sharing and talking on them. Because I know that a lot of the times when you do see like a negative one or one that's filled with misinformation, you're drawn to react to it, but they thrive on the reaction as well. So even if it's a critique of a piece, it's rarely overwhelming enough and poignant enough to get the publication to withdraw it. So I would say, as a kind of action point to everyone watching and those of us here in the room now, it's like to shine a light more on the positive stories and maybe email, backdoor, like don't necessarily like publicly, a lot of the time, sometimes you're drawn to do it fair, but like give more attention to the good than the bad. And we can drive up the commissioning of articles that are actually going to be more helpful than harmful.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Okay, beautiful. Pranav, I'm going to ask you a question. So what key policy implementations related to education will enable autistic children to thrive?
See, the key policies in the education thing is like early intervention is required in the education, where the child is with autistic and whether it is having any challenge or not. So we need to diagnose at the early intervention. Never see and if the child makes any mistakes, please don't pinpoint the child in the public in front of everybody else. You can just tell them in private, don't tell them in public. And whatever good things they do, small things, try to appreciate them. It will become motivating factors to them. Then they will be they will do something wonders. So next one point I want to tell you, because I have also given the several meetings, several presentation in the Global Autism Convention 2018, which was hosted by Andrew Nelson in 2018 December, and my area of interest is towards autism, and it became a passion to me. So that is why I'm I'm representing my nation in this forum. So very happy to tell you this. And autistic people are something like they are like special. You don't have to label them and keep them separate. You have to be included them in all the activities. No need to exclude them, include them. Give them an opportunity.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. Beautiful. Okay, Elizabeth, a question for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your program to gain communication access for non-speakers with autism in schools? Excited to hear.
Communication for All works with innovative public and private schools to offer typing programs for non-speakers. Our partners train the staffs at these schools to teach non-speakers to type. These schools serve as beacons in the educational community as we work on public policy to ensure all schools provide typing instruction. In the US, the Americans with Disabilities Act mandates accommodations that give effective communication to individuals with communication disorders, yet these civil rights are routinely denied in schools. Communication for All works to educate lawmakers about how schools violate the law when students are denied their communication method of choice, typing on a letterboard or keyboard with a communication partner. Just as blind students use Braille and deaf students use sign language, non-speaking students require these accommodations to be educated.
So thank you, Elizabeth. That was really, really well said. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your truths with the world, and thank you for being part of this beautiful event today. Awesome. Thanks.
What an amazing panel. Thank you so much, all of you, for everything you were talking about and sharing with us. There is so much to learn from all of this. Now, having looked at everything, having seen you and heard you over these last couple of hours has really put things home to me. It's very clear that many of us, if not all of us, get either bullied or taken advantage of as we grow up. It leaves a lot of scars. It leaves us traumatized in various ways. And this is something we really need to address significantly. I loved hearing the comment from Ben about going from awareness to acceptance to appreciation. Yes, please, let's have appreciation. Appreciate that we are here because we are giving a lot back to the world. We are taking our rightful place in society. We have a voice and we have agency, and we're going to come together and use that a lot more in the years going forward. So you will hear more from all of us. Thank you so much.